Welcome back, Shinners. Welcome back to the Shindig podcast, where we get under the skin of the trials community. I'm Tom Hutley.
And I'm Matt Pengelly.
Today we have... Oh my God, I'm so excited.
I don't even know where we start with this.
The daddy of UK trials. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, the god of the trial scene, to be fair.
We would not be here without this man.
Have we peaked too early? We might have. But let's hear it for Mr. Martyn Ashton.
Yeah.
Do I clap or do you clap?
No, we just they clap when they listen.
Everyone will be in their cars clapping, going yes,
screaming, and all thinking like, how the hell did these lads get him on?
Oh, there we go.
Martyn, how you doing, mate?
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm really excited actually. I'm really excited to talk about some trials because no one will ever talk trials with me.
Right.
And so I'm well up for that. And I'm well into it.
Good, mate. No, we're really glad to get you on the show. It's been sort of working towards this, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
very much so.
We're like, I don't know where it can go from here, really.
Yeah, Mum, I made it. All right.
Who else have you guys spoke to? So you spoke to John Shrewsbury. I know that. But who else have you had on?
Yeah, trying to think that people you might even know. I mean,
this is part of the conversation, really. We want to know like how much you're sort of still included with the trial scene, or how much you're listening to. And
we've had Tarty Adam on from Tarty Bike, so we had the whole
Tarty
Bike
story. He's a great kid, that guy. They're really important to the sport, actually. Tarty Bikes.
Definitely. Yeah, so that's another one that's gone through. Some of the Jack Carthy, of course, a world champion competition rider. He's been on. Charlie Rolls, arguably. Extremely good 20-inch rider at the moment. I'm not sure if you've seen his name.
Mate, I've known Charlie Rolls since he was tiny.
There we go. See, these are things we didn't know, and we're gonna find all
getting under that skin,
all the things out. Yeah, of course.
So where do we begin?
I know there's so much
to go into here.
Let's go back to the start. Let's go back to right where it all sort of began for you. Martyn, really? I mean, that pinnacle point where you're like, wow, I'm going to be a trials rider.
Well, I started on motorcycle trials, so I was super into that. I'm the youngest of three brothers, and my two brothers both had bikes before I did, and I had like the hand-me-down motorbikes, and I got super into motorbike trials, but and that was probably from about 11 years old till I can't remember how old I was when I got a 20-inch trials bike, but I feel probably 18. I was old, I was like, It was really late on, but they weren't around. You know what I mean? You just didn't see. There was one guy called Dave Page who was a fantastic motorcycle trials rider, and his dad imported Monties. He's a Scottish kid, and his dad, Ernie Page, I think it was his dad's name. He imported Monty, and you'd see Dave Page at some of the like national motorcycle trials with his Monty. He'd come out the back of this big truck they had, and he'd be tricking around with his Monty, and he was shit hot on it. He was like so much better than anyone ever seen in the UK. But it was probably because he had a bike that could do that stuff, because Monties were just so...
They were built for it, yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing else like it. Everyone else was riding around on like Fantic trials bikes and Montesa trials bikes, and then lots of people had converted BMXs. That's why I had a rally burner with a little steel bash plate bar welded under the bottom of the chain ring. So anyone on a Monty with like a super light gear just was like next level. And Dave Page sort of brought the bike into the UK, and about a year after seeing one, I finally went along to they were called cyclo trials. They're not bike trials.
Right, cyclo trials.
A cyclo trial event, and we heard about one in Essex because that's where it all kind of got, happened. And I just remember,
off a bit,
yeah, I just sort of remember seeing a guy called Stuart Matthews.
Stuart Matthews, rep up Stuart Matthews, yeah.
Oh, God, I'll tell you what, one of the nicest people I've ever met, that guy.
Yeah.
Such a lovely guy. And he came and did a demo at the local motorbike shop that I was sponsored by. And I remember just watching him and thinking he was like doing magic. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like he did a side op, and it was like his feet couldn't go down.
Right, yeah.
Just correct.
How we watched Jack Carthy and other riders now, kind of, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what it was like. He was like the number one guy in the UK at that point. This is probably about 2 years after sort of seeing Dave Page riding him. And yeah, he was all dressed up in like the green and white OP Monty kit.
Yeah.
And those guys, Stuart Matthews and the Essex crew, they'd been over to the World Championships in Spain, and they knew Pedro P and Op P, and and he was really like deep into what was actually bike trials, And watching him, I just thought, Christ, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I went along to a bike trial, and at the same time, Horsey went along to one, but not actually on the same weekend. We were all in motorbike trials, myself, Martyn Hawes, a guy called Wayne Holdsworth, who's a fantastic motorcycle trials rider and was sort of better than me and Horsey by quite a way on push bikes. And yeah, we all sort of separately went along to bike trials and had a go. I rode my first one. I rode the expert category on a rally burner.
I can't even picture that now. That's the category I ride, and I can barely do it on a proper trials bike.
That's still mental.
I mean, I couldn't do bike trials. I couldn't do any of the hopping about or anything. You couldn't do that on a rally burner. You could make kind of like motorbike sections, and you'd like use the big gear and you'd ride through and try and get as far as you could without stopping. Because the moment you stopped, you couldn't get it going. Gearing was so hard. And you do a bit of hopping, but you'd be hopping about like you were pretending it was a motorbike. So you're almost like playing motorbikes rather than trying to do bike trials. And it was a really muddy trial. And I just kind of, my friend came along with me, and he had a rally burner as well, right? But he had better brake blocks on his rally burner. So he let me use his one. So I actually rode my friend's rally burner. It's a guy called Ian Benson, who you may know actually, because if you're into guitars, he was the lead guitar player for the Alan Parsons Project and Pilot.
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest guitar players. He's actually like mega famous in the music industry, but he was my spare rally burner at my first bike trial, because he was into motorbike trials as well. So he'd come along just to kind of like hang out, and he was like my biggest supporter. He was like, "You've got to go along," because he thought I was shit hot on this push bike, and I had no thoughts that I was any good at all. And I went along, and because it was a muddy trial and keeping moving was a really good idea. And lots of people, because you get obsessed with hopping, so they start like. You're at the start of a muddy section, and then you can't get any grip, so you instantly start hopping. Yeah, like hopping forwards, trying to get some grip. Whereas I was getting a run up on my rally burner because I couldn't do the hopping stuff, and I just ride through. And I ended up coming second in the experts on this rally burner, and I was like made up. But the elite guys to me just look like magicians.
But at what point then, because you're riding through this competition, you're not really doing, like you've just said, trials. So to some extent, you yourself grew with the sport as well, like the way that the tricks kind of came about. And
yeah, I just literally after that trial, I bought Ian Benson had some cash with him because quite frankly, Ian Benson's loaded. So he had some cash with him, and there was a guy there selling a Monty, and he was like, "Let's get it." And my dad was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna have to give Ian back this money when we get home." So there was a bit of a conversation of like, "Can you lend us 300 quid till later on tonight?" And he bought this bike, and and then the moment I had a Monty, the light gearing and the hydraulic brakes, and it was a T219, the one before the aluminium bike came out, a steel one with a
there's a weird shape frame, wasn't it, as well? Like kind of
3-piece fork, like a big tool. And I just adored that bike. I couldn't believe it when I got it, and instantly started trying to be like OP at that point. Excuse me. I tried to like emulate those guys, and now I went along to the World Championships later on that year. I moved up to elite straight away, went over to the World Championships, got a total smack in the face from like how good it, like, oh my God, I didn't even know any of this.
Jumped in the deep end sort of thing.
The first bike trial in the World Championships that me and Horsey went to Horsey and me had kind of hooked up at that point in terms of like we were practicing together all the time, and we went and we were trying to sort of get good in the UK scene. But Stuart Matthews at that point was still like untouchable. Wow. I was coming second to him all the time. Horsey was like third. There was another guy that Horsey used to battle with. He would always get in the way.
There's a bit of competition between you two, kind of pushing each other.
No, between me and Horsey a bit, but not that much. I think I think we were very happy with. We were trying to be like these. We had our own little scenes in our heads.
You started. I mean, how is the competition scene? I don't know if you've seen how it's progressed, but obviously from when you first started, it's very different now from compared to what it used to be. Have you kind of followed the route of the competitions?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I still love it. I mean, I work on a mountain bike channel, but I'm a trials rider.
Well, that was a question we were going to get to at some point, but I think you've just answered it. You are on a trials podcast, so
I'm a trials rider, and I'll never be anything else. That's what
There we go. That's one question we was going to answer. What do you identify with? Are you a mountain biker or a trials biker?
What are your pronouns? A trials rider or a mountain biker?
I love trials, and I've followed it. I haven't followed it religiously in the sense that I know who the top 10 are, but I know all of the riders, and I follow enough on different channels so that I know who the sort of the big hitters are. But that's kind of how I was when I was riding myself. I didn't really care too much who.
He's still in the background, knows what's going on in the scene. People, he is, despite him maybe not kind of, you know everything that's happening with us. I'm sure.
I mean, like if anyone asked me now who were the best riders, I would be, I'd be pretty confident in saying that Jack Harvey is. I don't think anyone can touch Jack Harvey at the moment. I think Charlie Rolls is. Charlie's unbelievable. Yeah. But he's always, until you move off of a 20-inch, you're always going to be on that funny little bike, and that's so frustrating because from people from the outside, like I could show someone a video of Charlie Rolls, people I know in mountain biking, and they'd be like, "Yeah, it's a weird little bike." They get
right,
that's true. It's like people look at BMX and stuff. It's still a bit kind of kiddie-ish, really, isn't it?
Super specialist.
I don't think it's the same as BMX because I think BMX is understood much more. Whereas a 20-inch trials bike is so confusing for someone to look, especially nowadays. I mean, they used to be weird back in the day when they looked like a bike, but now they don't,
It's a very good point,
They look so crazy. So people can't relate to it. The 26-inch wheel bike, I think people can relate to a bit more. So they could watch someone like Jack and be like, oh, okay. But even at that point, they're still like, that's weird. It's just always been the barrier.
Extremely hard to relate to, being like, I can barely do that on feet, so how is he doing that on a bike? That's what often people say, and then I'm like, well, it's easier on a bike.
A lot of the time it is. A lot of the time it's like, well, but you'd much rather be on a bike than try and jump on your feet to that pole over there. Break your ankles.
Well, I think a lot of it's perspective as well. Like street riding really helps that out because it gives a level of perspective. With some of these guys doing rocks and things, and arguably, I think that's definitely what. Do you want to go into a little bit about your background in terms of chain spotting and obviously tricks and stunts, because that brings it into
Well, we only say it because there's a couple of people I will mention. There were 4 people on occasions. Sorry, I've forgotten your names, but they have specifically said to say thank you for creating those that actually give them direction for their life. Believe it or not, they're like, as soon as I watched that, I didn't look back. And now I ride a trials bike. They've had a really big impact on the scene.
Just want to kind of know a bit about, how they came to be, because this is a time when, video cameras weren't easy to come by. It was the odd person who had that. What was the impetus? Who started them? Who was driving them? And, who was the equipment? Give us a bit of an insight to this.
Well, the chain spotting was, me and Horsey were really heavily, once we went along to a mountain bike event when we were both, I was kind of winning all the British bike trial rounds and Horsey was coming second, and we were like, we thought we were the shit. We thought we were amazing. And we went along to a mountain bike event, which I'd never been to before. And I was suddenly like, oh my God, this is like 1,000 times bigger. Like it was a British round of the cross country championship. The riders were like rock stars. Everyone just was like, all the kit was colourful and the bikes were, I mean, mountain bikes back in the sort of early 90s were like just so cool. They were like, big fat tubes and and I was just like amazed by it. And at that event, they had a little demo trial, and there was a guy called Jez Avery who was like the best mountain bike trials rider to mountain bikers. Anyone in bike trial would have seen this guy. And excuse me, Jez, he's a lovely guy, but without being insulting, he was terrible. He was just like, and everyone was like, "Here's Jez Avery. You could ride against him." And we were watching him going, like, you gotta be kidding. So me and Horsey literally, and this was like they thought they were watching the best mountain bike trials rider in the country. And honestly, the beginners at Essex Bike Trial would have given this guy a kicking. He just wasn't up to they had no idea of the standard of bike trial, which was OP level, which would still be good. Yeah. If you went out of OP now, it would still be like, well, that was pretty big. It was like, it was outrageous what that guy could do. And that's what we were trying to be. So we went along to that mountain bike trial, and literally this event had about 8 sections laid out. And I literally took a bike off of someone in the crowd, like someone's mountain bike. It was like, "Can I borrow that bike?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I won it, and Horsey borrowed someone else's bike, and he comes second. and this, I swear to God, this is not a lie, right? Yeah. Steve Bear, who is always been like the #1 photographer for mountain biking in the UK. He was MBUK magazine. Yeah. That's all the covers. There's Steve Bear.
Right. Because he's the one with the archive. Sorry, carry on. Yeah, he's got an archive of all the... Stockfile. That's what it's called, yeah.
Again, probably one of the most important people in my life. I mean, that guy, Ian Bairnson, Steve Bear, probably the most influential people in my life. He walked up to me and Horsey and was like, "Do you realise what you just did?" And we were like, "Beat a really crap trials rider, I don't know." We were like, thought it was some kind of joke. And he was like, "I've got to do a shoot with you guys. I've got to do a shoot with you guys." And then we did this photo shoot. We were on the cover of MBUK. We had sponsors ringing us like the day the magazine came out. And then we were in mountain biking. That was it. We were just like...
That's what I thought here. Was that kind of the start of your recognition, perhaps? Like MBUK put you on the front and all those pictures. Was that where your career started to kick in?
It was, but it was all based on the fact that the level in mountain biking just wasn't at the standard. So everything we did on a mountain bike, mountain bikers were like, "What?" They just couldn't they couldn't believe it. Yeah. Whereas we were like, I knew there was 30 people in the world better than me. But I was just in the country, like the UK had such an amazing mountain bike scene that it just worked here. So me and Horsey became the 2 people at bike trial when we'd go back to the World Championship, where all the top riders were like, "You boys, man, you like,
yeah, right,
you're living the life of rock stars." And we'd go to the events. We didn't try. I didn't care.
I just had a laugh, right? Yeah.
I'd come 5th. I'd come 5th in a trial and be drinking, and we were just having a total crack. So in the mountain bike scene, we wanted to be like Rob Warner and Steve Peat, who were like rock stars. Yeah. So when they started making Chainspotting, they'd had the film out before that called Dirt, which had JMC on it, and Rob Warner was in that too. And it did really well. So MBUK said they were going to make a new video called Chainspotting, and me and Horsey wanted in on it. We were like, "Let us be in it." And they were like, "Look, guys, you're not ready. This is going to be a big video." And we were like, "Oh man, they're going to go to America, and we could. They don't realize what we could do. We could be so. It would be so cool to have some trials on there." And they were like, "Nah, bunny hops are weird, and we don't really want to." But yeah. And then basically me and Horsey paid to be on the on Chainspotting. We basically stumped up the money to go, "Look, we'll pay all
That's
of
like
our
a Jonah Hill getting on Wolf of Wall Street." Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah, like, just to be there, but like,
yeah, just let us be in it. And then instantly, the first day we got to, I can't remember, we went to LA or something like that. I don't know where it was. Was it LA or Las Vegas? Yeah, LA, isn't it? Yeah. I can't remember. It was somewhere sunny in America. We went there, and it was like they instantly saw how useful we were, because the downhillers were like, well, we can't do anything. We're at the hotel. We can't do anything until we get to a downhill track. Or
exactly.
Whereas the cameramen who had these massive film cameras, you know, they were like real. You know, there was a director and a, you know, like
producer and everything, right?
Head of photography, and like they just wanted to get their cameras out, and we're like, oh, let's just go down. There's some walls down by the car park. Let's go and do some stuff down there. You can just get your cameras out. And they were instantly like, holy fuck, we can just
right.
That's off the plane and we're filming. It's like, that's trials. You can do it anywhere, man. You can do it anywhere.
So, yeah, but that's what made me just realizing then they're like, no, we don't want you in the video, and then realizing, oh crap, we could have got that very wrong. So had you not been funding that for yourself, you wouldn't have been on Chainspotting. What an incredible story! Like that.
Yeah, it was weird, and it was such a brilliant trip. It was wild. Yeah. There's some shit went down on that trip.
I know you said earlier we talked about a little bit of the how crazy the frames are nowadays, of the design and all that. We wanted to dig a little bit into how the Ashton frames came about.
They were the coolest trials frame then. I think they still are now.
They still are now. Nothing like that.
Because that plastic seat, because it was like that Moto Trials inspired seat. But I think if you took the seat off, it was still like a trialsy kind of frame.
And if anyone sees an Ashton now on a ride, everyone will go over to it and like huddle around and go, oh, look, it's a Martyn Ashton. Oh, it's an Ashton frame. Oh, it's got a seat. Like,
how did that come about? Was that in combination with anyone else? Was it just well, tell us the story.
Yeah.
I drew it right here.
On that
where
table.
I'm sat right now. Where I'm sat right now. Yeah, I can't remember what really made me think I should do it.
Was it your idea to begin with, or did someone say, "Hey, let's do a frame in your name because it will get, you know"?
No, it was all just I tell you what it was. I was on Cannondale for a long time, and the bikes were like just beautiful. And then I had this opportunity. I found out Volvo were pulling out of for anyone who doesn't know, I was on a race team called Volvo Cannondale, and Volvo were a huge sponsor, and it was a really big money team, like millions and millions of pounds. And I found out from Volvo that they were going to pull out the following year, in 2002. So 2001, I was like, shit, what I don't want to be is on a team that's ending. I need to get off this team. And I did not want to leave Volvo Cannondale because it was the best experience ever. Right. But I knew it was going to end. And Volvo were really the people who used me really well. And the team manager at Cannondale was a bit of a dick, and he wasn't into trials. He didn't see the use in it. So I was like, that ain't going to pan out well for me. So I'd always used my Volvo backing as like influence to make sure I could get what I wanted on the team.
Yeah.
So I felt pretty vulnerable. So I started talking seriously with Animal, with a guy called Steve Kitchen, who, again, another amazingly important person in my life. Steve Kitchen was really keen to sponsor me, and Animal were doing really well. So I set up a deal to go to them. But it meant I didn't have a bike. I'd worked it out, so the clothing brand was my sponsor, and it meant I could do anything with my bike. And I thought, there was nothing I wanted to ride. And I always was playing motorbikes when I was on my push bike. That's what I was always, in my head, every pedal was a that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'll make a bike that feels like how when I sit on my motorcycle trials bike, you sit down low in the seat and the bars are up here, and you rest your hands over the bars and you chat to your mates. You just sort of
full.
You know, that's how you do it. And you just sort of relax and you watch someone ride and you're like, oh, that was cool. And then I designed the bike like where I wanted to sit when I was chatting to everyone else. And then as I looked into it, I thought, wow, if I really if you look at an early Ashton now, they're not actually that small, but at the time it felt small. The moment you bring that seat height down towards the bottom bracket, the bike becomes such a small thing that can then twist much easier. You know, like and that's why you've got like big long sticks now, because basically they turn left and right way easier when they're on the back wheel. Whereas if you make that frame and suddenly you've got to turn this, it's a much harder thing to maneuver. So I just thought, I'll get that vibe of the motorcycle trial, that big motorcycle trials bike with that big sweep of the frame coming down and then kicking up over the back wheel. I'll nail that, and then I'll bring the frame down and I'll make it super light. I went too light with the first ones and they all burst. It was a nightmare.
It's usually how trials parts work.
Yeah, and it's weird because the Ashton Justice ended up being like bomb proof. It wasn't. It was like the heaviest one, but it wouldn't break.
Well, it's still about now, you know. I think that's the time, you know.
That's the later ones, you know. Them early ones were pretty thin, but they were cool. And that little plastic seat, I literally, like these days, you design that quite easily on SolidWorks, or probably do it on Google SketchUp or something like that if you wanted. But I didn't have any technical knowledge in terms of using that sort of platform, so I literally drew a wireframe of this seat that I wanted, and I sent it to China, and they were like, "That's great. Could we have the CAD drawing of it and different angles?" And I was like, well, I don't know what a CAD drawing is. What are you talking? And they're like, the CAD drawing that's created your 3D model. And I was like, no, that's it. I've got one angle. I drew it. That's pencil. That's not CAD. That's not like a
Can I have it back when you're done with it as well, please?
Yeah. And they were like, so we can't see it from another angle. And I was like, no. And they were like, how big is it? And I was like, I don't know. And then I suddenly realized they didn't know if they were looking at something this big or something as big as a house. They just were looking at a shape. And I was like, oh, it goes on a bicycle.
You forgot. You're like, are they not going to realise that the wheels go here? The wheels go. They just. They
thought it was some kind of tent or something. But it was so weird. But then they were like, you don't need this seat. You don't need this seat. It's a mistake. And I was like, I'm not doing it unless I can have the seat, because I want to sit on something with my mates and chill out, and just. But I want it to feel like, and then I want to stand up on it and it be like, here we go.
you already knew it had to have wheels and handlebars. It's like, well, hang on, what do any bikes have that I don't? And to this day, it's still the closest, push bike trials to a motorbike trials. Yeah, still to this day.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it failed instantly because I made that seat. It cost me. I mean, the tooling for that seat, I wouldn't even mention how much it cost me on this thing. But it basically destroyed me company-wise immediately, because it was so expensive, and I couldn't put the cost into the frames because they would have been unbuyable. Yeah, they were already expensive for the time. And I'd had to create a website, and I was really struggling with money on it. But I was like, I've got to get these. There was only 50 of them, and I was like, I've got to get this bike out, and I'm having that seat whether everyone likes it or not. And they all sold straight away, and I was like, shit, I've done it. Everyone bought them. And then I was like, I need to order some more bikes. So I went on to a call with the guys who I had helping me over in China, and they were like, oh, cool, yeah, right, we'll put an order in. How many do you want? And I was like, oh, no, let's do like 100. Let's do 100 bikes. And they were like, okay, we can have them with you in 6 months. And I was like, oh, shit. And then I realized, I knew I was screwed, because everyone else were bigger companies, Zoo and Echo and all these brands. They were way more connected over in China than I was. And they saw my bike and they just went, we'll just make that exactly the same, slightly improve the geometry, and we won't put that stupid seat on. That's too expensive. And then they all sold them. And by the time I had the next 100 bikes, it was out of date in terms of geometry. And I was like, I killed myself instantly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I didn't understand how quickly people could go, that's a cool idea. Great, we'll do that. And Zoo basically copied my bike identically, although they say they came up with the same idea at the same time. And I'm like, really?
So it might have been
that shape. UK also came up with that shape.
Well, that's what I wanted to know, because once you take that seat off, it does have like the hallmarks of what we would ourselves call like a TGS bike, like a tap side of the. But my memory's a bit muddy of it, because I only got into trials around that time when they came out, presumably. But was there anything before that time that, before you making that frame, that was close to that? or what would have been the closest?
No, there was nothing that looked like that at all.
That's
and
why it's pioneering it, right? Cool.
But it's right at the moment. If you remember, it's right at the moment of like Craig Lee Scott and Neil Tunnicliffe doing TGS stuff.
Yeah.
And what that really was, although there's a look to those bikes in terms of the frame, is that the length of the bike really changed at that moment. Literally at that moment. So the first Zoo that come out, that was like, I think it's Zoo and what was
Echo or Adamant?
Echo, Zoo. No, Adamant were a bit later.
No, it might have been Zar was one of them.
Zar. I think Zoo was the first one. Oh, Castilier.
Oh yeah, Castiliers, yeah.
So Zoo and Castilier both had a bike come out. They were basically the same thing, and that was basically about 3 months after the Justice had been out. They had a bike out with no seat on it, but they'd taken that idea of getting rid of a seat tube essentially and using the top tube to create a very strong spine. They'd taken that idea, but then gone with the TGS kind of like geometry. And that's where I got caught out, because I wasn't thinking, tap gap side ops. I was thinking motorcycle trials. I was off in my little Martyn world, and I made the bike that I could ride. And if I just put, some millimeters on the front end, it would have been absolutely on point. But it was just off in terms of comp style and where the kind of street movement was going. And but I ended up being a great project, because I then got into like the Ed Tongue frame, and then Danny Mac rode the Ed Tongue frame and basically went to Dave at Inspired and was like, make that. And he made that, and then we've got Danny Mac. So
yeah,
we can't be sad about that. You know what I mean? Like that's a good part of trials to be, a part of. So what the Ed Tongue frame was something I was probably as proud of, because that really created a bike that's still going. It's still essentially
a new standard of trials, essentially.
Yeah, a little bit. It was just embracing the street scene, just going, oh, that's just cool. And people like Ed Tongue, you could see that they could do so much more if the bike would just move in their direction. So I was really keen to create a bike that someone like him could get on and just make look great. And well, don't know if anyone's made a trials bike look much better than Ed Tongue yet, but still unbelievably good.
But it's also one of those things, trials itself is a skill that I believe every cyclist should have. If you're a mountain biker, really, to be up there, you need to have a certain level of trials ability. I don't know if you agree, if you know what I mean by that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And you recently did, or started doing some trials tutorials on...
we're trying to get like mountain bikers into. I think it's part of.
I think it was on the GMBN channel. I think just after last year, you started doing a few trials tutorials, teaching the presenters some of the basics and the track stands.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
do you remember that? I just wondered, are we likely to see anything in the future along those lines of maybe like a Martyn Ashton trials school, or anything to do with?
Maybe. I mean, the thing is, obviously, I am, like I said earlier on, I am a trials rider, that's what I am. But the only thing I can do in terms of mountain bike, about cycling these days, is mountain bike. Yeah. I can't do trials because of my injury. So it's that's just something I can't do anymore. And I that's what really hurts. That's what, going out on a mountain bike, it's great fun. I love it. But I was never very good at mountain biking. I was, I could ride down a trail and I could do some jumps and whatever, but I wasn't like a downhill racer, but now I ride trails, so that's good fun. I like it. But what I want to do is motorbike trials, and I want to do push bike trials. I want to go down Porthcawl and ride on the rocks.
Yeah.
So that's, I've got to be honest, quite painful. That's not.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it would. I think for me, it would be. Yeah.
I don't take my mind there very much, to be honest, because it's not gonna, I haven't got an answer for that really. No, I've got an answer for getting back on a bike. I'm like, I can do it. I can work out a way, and people have, done that lot since as well. So that's really cool.
I'm
but
not
it's
sure
not.
I understand.
Oh, Siri doesn't understand.
Siri doesn't understand either.
Okay, let me start. Right, you put one foot down. That's a dab. Okay. No?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've lost track now.
But still, well, I was going to say it's still a level of skill involved here, Martyn. Like you say, you're a trials rider, but the stuff that you've been doing on a bike recently, still got. You made a really good point, Tom.
I was thinking that there's a big amount of pressure for you to perform, but like you said, that you wasn't really much of a trails rider anyway. So everyone's like, "Go for it, Martyn, do it. Like, you can do it," but it's pretty fucking.
You're a trials rider,
anyway.
and you're like, "Oh, I've just go for this." There is a level of expectation that people are expecting you to be like, "That must be easy for him." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but I haven't got that expectation. I don't. I haven't. You know, I've always been able to ride mountain bike pretty good because from riding motorcycle trials, you go pretty fast between the sections.
Yeah.
You know, you basically do. You know, you're on a big full suspension bike that goes way faster than a downhill bike, and you go flat out between the sections when you've got a good. When you're at a trial with a big, bit of land, and you've got like 2 miles between sections 6 and 7, you absolutely pin it, and it's wicked. So I can ride quick, and I can, I've always been able to do that, but just wasn't really like, if I wanted to do that, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go and do a downhill run. I'd be like, yeah, no, but there'll be a bit where it's slow because I'm on a push bike. Whereas if you're on a trials bike, you can nail it. I mean, they're not so good now. They're kind of stupid now because they're just like, the gearing's so weird. They're not as torquey anymore. They used to have like a big longer gear and they were gnarlier, but
go that little bit faster as well.
They're a bit too accurate now.
Send it, you know.
Well, having to sort of like engage, drop the clutch, and then getting it at that right point.
I follow, like, I don't know if you watched the follow the Hemingways. Do you know the Heming, like, so Dan and Ben Hemingway were really good motorcycle trials riders in my schoolboy category. When I was young. So when I was like 15, 16, they were like, along with Dudley Lampkin and Graham Jarvis, it was the Hemingways. They were amazing. Dan's oldest, Ben's youngest, I think. And now a couple of their kids are really shit hot in motorcycle trials now in, these days. And the stuff they do, it's like, what? How?
Take it to another level. Well, I mean...
Oh, it's just because the bikes are so good.
They're just so good in that way. Did you see the future of trials in that way? Like you said, you make the frames. Did you see going the way that it's gone now? Yeah,
I think motorbike trials is it's much more technical now on the level, but that's trials. In 10 years' time, you'll look at what Tony Bow's doing and think it's shit. Well, maybe not Tony Bow.
I saw him on some Africa Twin jobby bike recently, and he's just like, that's a touring bike, and he's doing stupid stuff on it.
There's going to be people doing stuff that you won't. That's trials. It's just it's such the sharp end of progression of where can you put a bicycle, like where can you put it, like what can you ride it up?
Where can you go on a bicycle? Which in turn, what do you like to watch then with the riding? What's your sort of what videos do you really enjoy watching, Martyn, in terms of biking, the mountain biking trials, motorbike trials?
I like watching any kind of like top level motorbike trials, but if I was going to sit and watch some motorbike trials, it would probably be older stuff. All the new stuff's incredible and I love it, but that's kind of Instagram, Whereas to me, that's an Instagram watch, which I don't do too much of these days. But if I was going to sit and watch some motorbike trials, I'd find an old 1990 or no, I'd go 1989. That's the best year. 1989, Jordi Tavares. Oh man, no,
yes, I mean, scary. We weren't even born then, were we, Tom? It's 90s kids. We're early 90s.
1989 was a hell of a year, guys. You missed out.
We definitely did.
I'd do that. Yeah, I'd do that. Or I'd go earlier. Watch some Eddie Lejeune. The Cocker Spaniel's named after Eddie Lejeune. He's called Eddie.
Oh, is he? He's been quite quiet, actually. We were expecting him to be really loud. But what are you doing?
He's been through already. George is here. Look. George is the big master.
Oh, yeah. Wow. He's just chilled, isn't he?
Say hello, George.
You all right, mate?
He's not that interested.
He's just like, oh, what?
Yeah. So, I go for the older stuff.
Going back to the older stuff, actually, there's one of our friends, Mr. Tom Rankin from Essex, been in touch and wanted to touch base with you and ask about record breakers. I don't know what year it was, but he said he remembers watching you on record breakers. You had jumped over 41 inches over a bar with Cheryl Baker watching, wasn't it?
No, that's
Correct
not
me.
right.
Go on.
43.
43. Sorry. Which makes me feel good because I've done that now.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel really good.
To be fair, though, that was on a front suspension. I think it's still the record. It's a front. That's the highest. Someone could do it easily.
Well, I think you're starting on 2 wheels as well, aren't you? You start
It's
on both
from 2 wheels. Yeah, because going from the back wheel's kind of cheating, really.
It is, yes.
It's kind of cheating. So I always thought side up needs to be like 2 wheels on the ground and then 2 wheels on the ground. So you go over the bar, because what I used to like is when you do a demo, people who hadn't seen a side hop, they haven't got time to take in what they've watched. So they'd see a bike and a pole, and the bike would go over the pole, but they haven't got time to see that the bike goes like that and then levels out and goes like, they just see the person go,
that's a good point.
And they're like, what? Like, they can't take it in. And I used to love that. So I would really practice being absolutely still. This is when I was doing shows all the time. So I was doing bunny hop 100 times a day or something. Yeah. I'd get really still. Then I'd want to side up and land really still and stop. And then I'd know they'd go, you'd get the audience would have this moment like, because you've got to remember, every time you do a demo, 80% of the audience, probably less, but at the time, 80% of the audience have never, ever seen what you're about to do. Yeah. And you have to treat it like that all the time. So every time you do a show and your front wheel drops out, it's the crappiest trials trick ever. It's rubbish. But you go on Britain's Got Talent and do it, and people go, what? Because they've never, ever seen it. Because trials is so tiny. And you do that stuff in front of people. And every time I do a show, I'd think, how is this exciting most of these people? Because I know there's 10 people in the audience who are like, his front wheel's going to fall out. He's going to hop on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Drive along there. Whatever. I've seen this 1,000 times. But everyone else is thinking, they're not going to ride it. Surely they're not going to. Is that for the what's that?
They start putting two and two together. Like, he's been on the floor. Is he going to go across those?
It's funny how it didn't really change much over like 10 years though, because my story was watching you for the first time. I was 13 in Plymouth doing a show. 6 years later, we were doing a show together in the same thing. But that's the point, being like how, I don't know, just how they sort of relate to it in progression of that. Yeah,
you just got. I always used to just love it with the hair drying started. I don't know if you can hear Eddie now. He's getting quite noisy.
Yeah. That's good.
Just about.
Turn the hair dryer off. I hate the hair dryer. I used to just think, when you're doing a show, you just got to remember that it's new for most of the people who are watching, and just give them a really good show.
Yeah, don't do the biggest move at the start of the show.
Don't try and build up really slow. Let them start to work out that you're doing what you're trying to do, and then just really enjoy entertaining them. And I struggled early on when I was doing shows that I wanted to show that I was the best. I'm the best. I can jump higher than everyone else. I can jump further than everyone else you're going to see today. I'm going to be the best, And then you realise at the end of the day, like, most of the people don't care. They just want you to do something. They go, wow, I can't believe it. And then they remember it forever. They go away and they go, I saw this guy once and he side-upped. Well, they don't even call it side-up. They don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I saw a guy and he jumped onto the roof of a car. Yeah. It was crazy. And I'm like, to trials, I was like, well, where else would you jump?
And you know that every time they've told that story as well, it's got a little bit stronger in their mind. They're like, he jumped onto a roof of a van, and then
they just remember it as this incredible thing, and you get to be this little story, which is I fell in love with that. That's what I fell in love with in the end, is I wanted to do shows all the time. I just loved it, and I got so lucky with the show that we created at Animal, that we were doing shows at really cool places and just in front of lots of people all the time. I mean, we had shows where we were in front of not very many people as well, but that's doing trial shows. You know, sometimes the location or the audience don't pan out and you're in the pouring rain and there's 7 people watching. But I had a rule, you know, I had a rule. If there was someone watching, if they were willing to stand in the weather and watch, then I had to ride.
100%.
That was and that's what I lived by. And all the dirt jump riders on the show used to hate me for it, because no matter what the weather, we set up, and they were like, there's no way we're going to ride today, it's too windy. And I was like, it won't be too windy for someone stood in the audience. They'll just stand there and go, you doing this or what? And we go,
give them a show whether it's wet or not.
You know, the beauty of a trials rider is they can say, yes, watch this. You know, I'll do it in this weather.
Or even like schools assemblies. You just work within a very, very small space. Yeah, you might only be able to do a couple of tricks. But really, in terms of entertainment and giving them, the kids and those people, to something to watch is incredible. That's why I think the show element and display stuff of trials is really important.
Oh, yeah. And that spans across, you know, from doing a little demo in a school at an assembly to Danny MacAskill, Fabio Widmer, that what trials can do that the other parts of cycling can't do is just turn things that are relatable in terms of objects into things people can understand, like a post, like a letterbox, a telephone box. You know, people can go, it's, hang on a minute, that's that big. And then I walked past that this morning and shape into it. And then trials suddenly becomes like an amazing microphone for cycling. And you know, you've got someone like a Scottish kid in a tiny little village, gets really good and makes a banging video that blows the cycling world away, and no one in cycling can understand it or believe it. And everyone in trials is like, he's been showing us clips of that video for like 6 months.
Yeah, we're always like old news to us. Yeah, it's so funny.
It's like, I saw that ages ago. You know, he's been talking about doing that thing off that tree forever. You know, it's like, but I don't know if Danny was talking about doing that thing off that tree forever.
Did you ever see trials going to that direction? When I say that, I mean, you know, mountain bike trials was never about backflips. Should we say you didn't generally do backflips? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's kind of how it got to that. Especially like road bike party, you're doing front flips on bikes now, and it didn't matter what bike you were on, you can do this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the backflip thing came from. I basically went to a skate park and failed, broke my back trying a backflip. But I was only trying it because I got bored. Eddie and Chris and Martyn were still riding in the skate park, and I just got tired. And I was like, I'm gonna go and do something else. And there was a foam pit there, so I jumped in it a few times, and I did a really crap jump where I went really steep, and thought, that's probably what you do to do a backflip. So I thought, I'm gonna try a backflip. So I tried it, and I got really close, and I was like, oh man, I could do a backflip. I'm gonna try that. And then I tried really hard, but what I tried to do is just go way faster. But I basically didn't know how to do a backflip. So I basically went really fast, went really high, stalled upside down and come back down into the foam pit and broke my back. And I was laid in this foam pit. There is a bit of video somewhere, Chris Ackridge's got it, where he walks into the foam pit with his camera, points it in my face and goes, he's all right. And I'm like,
and he's like, I've actually broken my back.
No, I climbed out of the foam pit, and my top half just wouldn't stay up. And I was literally like, oh man, my back really hurts. And I had my hands in my pockets trying to hold my shoulders up. And I said to Horsey, I was like, I think I need to go to hospital. Like, something's not right. And he was really freaked out because he thought maybe I had like internal bleeding or something. So we were driving down, there was loads of traffic on the motorway, so he was just hammering down the hard shoulder. Like, oh my god, my mate's gonna die in my car. Oh geez. And we got to the hospital and they're like, oh, you've cracked like 2 vertebrae, and I'd broken off bits off the back. And I basically recovered from it. It took about 6 months to get over. And then I went to the bike show, you know, like the NEC bike show. I couldn't ride, obviously. I'd only just got out of a wheelchair, and Simon Tabron, who's an incredible vert BMX rider and has been doing backflips since 1994, actually earlier than that, maybe 1990. He said, I heard you break your back trying flips. And I was like, yeah, you know, like, what was I thinking? You know, God, bloody trials riders. And he said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get it." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna. I've just broke my back, dude. I'm not gonna like.
I can't want to think about it anymore."
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? You know, BMXer mentality. And he was like, and he said this thing, and it was devastating. He said, "Well, but you've paid the price, and you don't own the trick." And I was like,
oh my goodness, it's a really good point there.
You just found a way of going big at the front now.
Oh, I have. Yeah, I come off really bad on the weekend. Now I go, well, I paid the price, but I didn't make the trick.
Yeah,
That is,
and it's life changing when it sinks in.
Because now we've suddenly a light bulb's gone off with us riding like every weekend. Like,
You've paid the price.
We paid the price. You need to go back and do it.
You got to go back. And it was the words of wisdom of like a BMX gladiator. You know, one of those people who's like lost his spleen and come back and tried the trick again. You know, just like I'm not out. They're so hardcore.
It's a really good point, actually. I've never looked at it in that aspect. Be like, oh, I'm not doing that again because I hurt myself. Actually, should be the opposite. Like, this damaged me. I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
And I thought, shit, I've got to do it. So then I came home. I got a bit better, and then I hired a whole lake. I think it's called Vobster Key, I think it's called. Yeah. But it cost £350 to hire this diving lake for the day and a diver. Because I had to have a diver in the water, and I practiced backflips into this lake. My first backflip was like, proper one was like 40 feet in length. Like, on my trials bike, hammering down. I was on a Justice. Because I'd suddenly twigged, right, if I'm going to learn this trick, I don't want to learn it on a BMX. I want to learn it on my...
Yeah, because you have to just do the thing twice.
I want to be able to use it. I'm not doing this trick right, so I can't use it. So I decided I'm going to learn it on a trials bike, and I'm going to make it as small as I can make it. So I'll be able to use it everywhere, you know, because I want to be able to put a flip in all my shows. And so I learned, first one I went massive, and then I sort of basically got it working. I had Chopper Fielder with me, who was one of the only guys in the UK who was doing flips then. And I learned how to do it, and then I scaled it right down. I went back to the foam pit where I broke my back, and I had to get over the mental block of like, oh, I broke my back here like 6 months ago. It
so
feels really
scary,
similar. Yeah, and I got it going round, and then I sort of worked my way up to doing it, you know, for real. I remember saying to Lisa, like, right, I'm gonna go today and do it, you know, like, shit, you know, terrified of doing it, and got past that, and then I got it into a show. And then I think I went to I think it was Bike 2005, something like that. It was a really cool bike show because we had everyone there. We had Vincent Hermance, Thessa Canis, Op P, the Castilliers, or maybe one of the Castillier brothers. There was all the British guys were there. We did Hop Idol. Do you remember Hop Idol? Like John Shrewsbury comes second in it, I think.
So hang on, Hop Idol? Is there something I don't know about?
Hop Idol was like, you know, Pop Idol.
About that
I mean, I love a good pun. Absolutely love a good pun, and that is so on point for me. Pop Idol.
Man, it was hilarious.
Might have to
me and Horsey
make a note of
judged
that
it
and bring that back. We're trying to bring.
There's a lot of nuggets in this conversation.
I'm surprised Shrewsbury didn't mention it because it's like his biggest claim to fame that he comes second in Hop Idol.
I'm surprised that too. Actually, I'll get at him again for sure.
He's always shied away from the competitions, as John.
Yeah, well,
he did it last year.
Actually, funny you say that, Martyn. So he went into competition last year. Annoyingly, he should have gone in expert with me, but he went in cadet and just absolutely nailed everyone.
Just cleaned it.
He rode in cadet.
Not cadet.
No, it was
intermediate. But
intermediate.
Cadets. Cadets an age thing, isn't it?
Honestly, that is shameful.
He's gonna listen to this now and be like,
John Shrewsbury, you pot hunter.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's unreal. He's been riding bike trials for 20 years and he went and rode in novice. Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had a much bit of a nice session because he just sort of rolled through the sections. He was on his...
I'm sure he did.
I think he was the only one that had a seat on their bike in the competition, basically.
You're painting him as some kind of hero in this story, and I just don't agree. Don't agree.
We did we gave him some abuse on the podcast and said, like, don't you think you should have done expert? So
he should have been riding elite, not expert.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think the people that were riding elite on that day were Charlie and Jack, so it was quite
the problem is with elite, has always been the problem with elite, is when you get to that level, you can do it, but no one else can. Like if you're riding elite, and that is one of the problems of motorcycle trials and push bike trials, that there's such a small amount of people who can actually do the limit of it. And we had it at bike trials when I first started riding. The elites at the time were like Otpi and Joseph Dressler and really incredible riders. But no one else could even get halfway through an elite section. It was just so much harder.
A massive jump between
that hasn't changed. You know, that's still the fact that, you know, basically Jack can clean everything and then everyone else fives everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like a trial made for one person. So I think that's a problem. That's a problem. The bikes, and, you know, there's things that have happened in trials that I've been a part of that have not helped make it be big.
What would you do yourself in the competition world to kind of change it? If you had your own option to be like, oh, this is how I would run competitions, or this is how I think they could implement something, what would you do?
E-bike trials. And that'll happen.
I think it will. I've already seen some of these electric sort of gas now online. The Jitsi.
No.
Oh, sorry.
E-bike mountain bike trials.
Yeah, like what Jack does on his
I was thinking about
Orange in that, Yes.
I mean, electric motorcycle trials, that'll happen, whatever. But that'll still be motorcycle trials. I think that I remember when I made the Justice frame, everyone loved it, but the one person who didn't like it was Hans Ray. And Hans Ray said to me, he was like, it's a mistake, because he said, you need to make your audience is mountain bikers and you need to make them fall in love with trials, which I was trying to do. He was like, but what you're doing is making a bike for bike trial riders, and no one wants it. No one who likes bicycles wants it. And what you're doing is you're making a bike that's better at trials than a mountain bike is. And it's going back towards 20-inch trials, which is exactly what's happened. You know, it's like what we've ended up doing is a mountain bike, trials bike, is no different to a 20-inch trials bike. They're as useless for anything else as each other.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point.
Whereas what he was making the point of is you should make a trials bike that has got front suspension, has got gears, has got disc brakes of the time, which everyone was going, no, you can't use disc brakes for trials at that point. And that his point was you need to fall in love with the technology of mountain biking, because that's where the money is. Because that's where the investment is. And e-bikes are at that moment now, all of the investment money in cycling in terms of manufacturing development is in e-bikes. Because everyone knows that's going to be massive. And
doing trials
that is, and they make trials so much fun, because you can suddenly climb up things without stopping and hopping, like riding, that you just can't do. And you see someone like Chris Ackrig, or you put Jack Carvey on an e-bike trials bike, they'll do something on it that people will go, oh wow, I could do that in my local woods. They wouldn't be able to do what they just did, but they'll do something that looks like it. They'll go, I could ride up a steep bank. I could do that. And they will buy that bike that costs £12,000, and so that's where I'd go. I would I'd start making, if any trials event builders are out there at the moment, create an e-bike category, or do an e-bike trial.
Well, it is that barrier to
hundreds of people
association, like when you said with a 20-inch trials, it's kind of it's a useless bike, really. I remember when we first got into trials, it was like, well, we want to get a mod or whatever, and it was like, if you had like an e-bike or a mountain bike or whatever, you've got a pretty usable bike, you can still do trials on it. You've got people competing in it, showing you that it's possible. So that would be a good thing to get more people's heads around it, really, so they can actually see that it's a usable bike.
Well, and seeing Danny and even like Duncan Shaw and Jack, they are riding e-bikes now from their and doing trials on them.
Well, you've seen the stupid stuff he's done with that massive stack of pallets, like in his front yard, where he's got that run up that starts down the road, and he just kickers up to it on
and you
an
want
e-bike.
to think, God, he's getting that much higher. I suppose with an e-bike, you're going to be able to get that 2 more pallets up that you weren't getting in that last kind of half a metre or so.
I don't know. I mean, I think you'll struggle because of the weight of them. You'll always struggle to do the size of things. But I think it's more that on an e-bike, you can do things going up a wooded trail. go up little rocks and things like that you just couldn't do on a normal bike, because the bike's helping you along, and I think that'll develop. And I think that as soon as people do like mountain bike trials courses, people will go and do them. They'll go and like ride a 10-section trials course, just like you would on a motorcycle.
It could be a combination. You've got an enduro cycle here, 10 miles cycle.
It's like an uphill climb, really.
The next section is rocks, and then you're doing trials, and the next section's downhill, and it could be all done on the exact same bike.
Well, what you're saying about the uphill muddy bank stuff, maybe like little rocks and stuff like that, it's not fun to watch. It's definitely not fun to do when you're hopping around on it. But if you've got someone nailing through it,
sport, and real trials isn't a spectator sport. It's like it's something you do. Like fans go and watch it, but it's very hard to understand, because you can't really get how difficult it is.
Well, even when we watch the Worlds online, you see a big rock, but you got no idea of perspective. And even for us as trials riders, we look at it, and if it looks semi-boring to us, how is that going to come across to the everyday viewer, the everyday person?
It's hard to understand. But I mean, there's a place for it. I want to see Jack Carvey and Charlie Rolls, but most people just find it just a bit of a stretch. They can see it's brilliant. They're like, wow, it's amazing, but I don't really know what they're doing. Whereas if you see someone do something on a mountain bike you'd like to do, that's the winner. That's what you need, is to get people to do it, not just watch it on YouTube. They want you to go, I could ride up a muddy bank, and that's e-bikes can take us there, and that can be a route into trials, but it can just be a route into riding bikes, which is it's all this. We're all trying to do the same thing, get people ride around on bicycles.
Just 2 wheels between our legs and having fun on it, really. As simple as that.
Some of us are geeky trials riders, but we don't all have to be geeky trials riders.
Well, it's actually, I think a lot of trials riders are geeky in general, aren't they?
That's the definition of the sport.
Do you know what I mean? It's quite a nerdy niche kind of thing to do, and most trials riders are pretty damn good on mountain bikes.
I mean, if you can do trials, you can learn any. It's always the thing. If you take a trials rider into a skate park and give them a BMX, give them a day, they'll be able to do something that looks pretty good. They'll be like, "What? Really handle that bike?" And you take them to a trail center and give them a downhill bike. They'll just have. It does create some limits, because if you're very, very good at trials, you probably won't ever be a very stylish mountain biker, because you become very rigid. On a trials bike. So if you watch Jack Carvey ride his mountain bike, you don't look at it and go, that was beautiful. You watch it and go, God, that was technically amazing, but it looked a bit like a robot, and Jack's pretty smooth for a trials rider. Whereas if you watch, I don't know, who's a great sort of, if you watch like Brandon Semenek, it's just art, it's just a person with creativity coming out of every pore, and it just looks beautiful. You're like, that's like he painted it, it just comes out of it. Whereas a trials rider is always going to struggle to have that. Fabio Widmer's done an amazing job of making his mountain biking look pretty good, because if you watch Danny's mountain biking, his actual mountain biking, it's a bit like,
you can tell he is a trials rider on a mountain bike. That is one person I've always said, you're like, hey,
and Danny would say that, Danny will go, I'm no beautiful and I'm no Brandon Semenek, but he'll put tricks in and do obstacles that just make up for that slightly stiff downhill. There's one video of Danny riding down a hill really fast in one of his good videos. And if you actually just watch the bit where he's going fast downhill, he like hits the brakes so hard at one point, you're like, oh man.
He's a trials rider, It's on or off. No modulation.
Get off the brakes, man. Like someone like Stevie P would have just like, you're like, why are you braking on a downhill with no corners? You're just going down a hill.
Just a straight hill on the way down.
I can't believe I'm on a trials podcast slagging Danny Mac off. What am I doing?
It's exactly what we were trying to get to. Well, he might be. What do you think? Do you think Danny will come on the show?
Oh, for sure.
He said it. Martyn said it. Yep. And if Danny knows,
Danny, he's on it. Like that kid is an example to any YouTube influencer out there, of all the ones that are making all the money in the world these days, Danny Mac is an example to them, because he has not changed at all. With all his fame and all his thing, he's the nicest kid. He's a super geek for trials. He loves it. He absolutely loves it, and he's amazing. He's created an avenue in trials that none of us had, and we've all got to just like thank God he exists, because it gave us all a new way to go. You know, it would only ever be what the comp scene is now. That's all it would have ever been, and some weird little videos here and there. But he made it.
He did take it to that next level.
If you, for sure you would do it, because he'd just say, "What, talk trials for an hour?"
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. Like, we're really trial specific. I know Duncan Shaw's mentioned he's doing a podcast, but he's a bit more on the man, and he's already reached out to us and seems to be liking what we're doing. Maybe he's going to hopefully come on.
I don't know anyone in trials that are sort of really that much of a big deal.
And even the biggest of the biggest deal is, humble Danny, I suppose. The humble man he is.
Yeah,
he's very humble, but Fabio's the same. I've only met him a couple of times, but every time I've met him, he's just been like, big events where there's a lot of attention on him, and he's just been like super cool. And everyone's when you get to actually meet any of these famous riders, whether it be trials riders or downhillers or cross country, they're all actually cross country riders. No, they can be weird.
Yeah,
they can be really weird. Some of them can be weird because they're actually deranged people. You can't spend that much time pedaling a bike along tired without actually having some sort of damage your mentality in some way. It is going to upset you. It is going to unbalance.
I can see that too, and how that would.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Nah, this is there's no off limits here. This is a thing. This is a podcast not for children. So
I always give the cross country riders jip, because downhillers are like relatable people. I always got on with downhillers really well, and cross country people I always just thought, and I hung out with a lot of them because I was on a race team for a long time. They can be really weird. Some of them are lovely, but some of the very, very good ones tend to be really odd.
I wanted to I was talking about good riders. Your Random Tandem series that goes on. Brilliant idea, by the way. Fantastic. I wanted to find out, was there an element of was there someone on there you were worried about cycling behind you or not as confident? Because obviously
they're giving all the power.
You're the one driving it. They have to trust you. I was just watching the other day going actually, this looks really hard.
And if anyone's ridden a tandem, I do not like them at all, because there's no, because you got to balance with each other. Like, it's not your own. I like riding my trials bike because it's my bike. I can balance that and stuff. But sharing with someone else, especially if they're a gnarly rider.
The tandem's weird because it's it hasn't really, the whole project never really got off the ground. We had such massive plans for it.
Yeah.
And it never really got going. Hopefully I can revive it once lockdown's over, and that all got in the way because we were still thinking about who we could get on it. But there was a list of riders that we were going to have on it that was, you name it, anyone who had ever been good in cycling was getting on the back of the bike, and we were going to go and interview them and take them on wild rides down some crazy stuff, and maybe we still will. I don't know if the appetite from the viewers is still there for it.
Yeah,
but I certainly loved doing it. The one with Rob was a day out of Rob Warner. It's never bad. And then Danny's was really great. And then I did one with Brett Tippy over in Whistler, which maybe was a mistake because people don't, Brett probably hasn't got like the reach that Danny and Rob had, or the people really want to hear from those guys, whereas Brett's a bit more core into mountain biking. I know who he is, and I was stoked to be riding with him, but maybe that was a weird angle for it.
Us too on the podcast, sometimes we will generally have people that we know and can have a chat about trials, but it's a good chance for everyone to educate themselves.
I still think it's a pretty good format, because you see that with a lot of things that go up on YouTube now. It's kind of like interviews, but like in really weird situations, like the original carpool karaoke's, people doing the hot wing challenges and stuff. It's getting.
That's all it was. Is we wanted to do, comedians in cars having coffee on a bicycle, or carpool karaoke on a bicycle. So we were very much like just trying to like copy that little trend.
That's what most things come from,
bloody good fun, and the bike is ludicrously scary to ride on the back. Like I've obviously only ever ridden on the front of it, and on the front it feels like riding a downhill bike. It feels good. It actually feels pretty good, unless you're going in on a very slow corner or climbing. It's not really that difficult, but when you're going slow speed and stuff, it gets pretty tricky. Me and Danny did some really slow speed climbing stuff that was bloody hard.
It looked hard, yeah.
And we practiced it loads. Me and Danny had a real blast on it, a really good time. And it was great, but everyone who's gone on the back is like, holy shit, it is.
It's scary. I must be scary.
Legit scary, yeah. I mean, I definitely know people I really respect are really good riders, and they'll get on the back and be like Neil Donahue will not get on it now.
Wow, that's what I was hoping they were on and be like, this is actually scary. I do backflips, I do front flips, but for some reason, being on this tandem cycling, I'm a little bit, too scared.
The one person who's really up for it is Blake from GMBN. Blake, me and him did A-line at Whistler on it, and that's the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. Oh my god. We did the first run. We went really, really gentle. I don't know if you've been to Whistler, but A-line's like the jump line that everyone rides. It's got some really big jumps on it, and just to ride A-line is like a really cool thing. But we were like, could I get down A-line on the Random Tandem? So we rolled down it, and we didn't really try any of the jumps, and we got down, and I was like, no way, I've ridden A-line on the Random Tandem. Let's try some of the jumps. That's awesome. Then we did a run, real chilled, but like let off the brakes and went for it, and we cleared everything but one of the jumps, which we just couldn't really do. There was one that just had, we could have cleared it, I think, but the consequence was maybe a bit like, that's stupid. So it was landing in quite a steep downhill. So there was one jump we didn't ever try, but all the other jumps we just cleared, and we're like, oh my god, we're like jumping A-line on the ground. So then we went into, there was a race on the same track like the next day. We're like, we'll race in the pro category on the Random Tandem, and because it was race day, we tensed up and we had it did not go well, and that's the video that you can see. So if you want to see two people very scared,
actually, I'm gonna go. I don't think I've seen that one. I'm definitely gonna have to.
It's I can't remember what it's called. I think it's just called. Maybe it's not on. Maybe it was just on Instagram or something. I don't know. It'll be somewhere. But that was legit scary, because the one run that went really well, we were just riding it. We didn't video it.
Of course.
But we got to the bottom, like, oh my god, we can do A-line. We're incredible. And then we did it again. We're like, we're never doing A-line again.
Yeah, one of those under the belt, done and dusted. There are moves like that. There's like the same for huge drop gap onto rails. Generally, done it once, got it on film, never doing it again.
Oh, gaps to rail.
And on a road bike drops to rail. Remember that your road bike one where you actually you injured yourself and had to go back there, didn't you? On the road bike party 2, was it? That rail drop, you actually injured your ankle. You had to take like 6 weeks off and go back to do the line.
Yeah, I injured myself a lot on that.
I know. It was that Bournemouth, but I definitely can
talk about shindig. I did a shindig on the road bike on the first one so I did one
road
on
bike party 1.
One I shinned myself on that bike so bad. Oh my!
Is that the worst that you've had, or
what, shinner?
Yeah. Everyone's had the one.
No, I did one early on where, on a 20-inch bike once, that was like where you just, oh man, the feeling of when you shin yourself bad is the worst. And it's like
we've turned it into a positive, Martin. We've turned it into a positive where now if someone gets one, they're screaming and constantly they're sending pictures to me, because it's all I get on the Instagram images. It's people's shins. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have we created?
We started a thing on the GMBN channel the other day. We've had to stop it. We started a thing called the body bin, where people send in their like broken bits that they've done to themselves on their mountain bikes. Then we like, okay, we're putting that in the bin, and we get rid of it.
I love that.
Oh, you should see the stuff people send in. It is gnarly. And I was like, I like it. I think it's funny. Because at the end of the day, right, if you've hurt yourself, you've got to do something positive with it.
Absolutely.
But everyone else on the channel is just fed up with looking at these because they go out riding and they're thinking about this stuff. So it's putting them off. So we've had to stop doing it. So if anyone listening to this does watch the Dirt Shed show, then sorry, that's why we've stopped the bodybuilding.
Okay, well perhaps we could, maybe we can.
Some of the shinners in that are like, down to the bone, deep down to the bone, stitches.
It's just really so much worse because there's momentum and speed behind it. Trials is just like bang, ow, like done. But
we've left it open to suggestion too, because shindigs aren't really just for trials riders. Of course, it's for anyone who gets on a bike. But I always felt that we got shindigs maybe more than others, perhaps. I might be wrong, but it just felt like every time I look at a trials rider, I'm like, wow, your shins are fucked. Like they just look disgusting. Even girls look at my legs and go, what's wrong with your legs? I'm just like, that's scars.
I can't remember the names. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a guy who rides trials, Dave someone, and his shins are just... He still rides. You guys must know.
Dave, if you're listening, shout out to us and just show us your shins.
I mean, he's really good. He's a really good rider. I think he might do minding for Jack Carvey sometimes.
We're going to have to do some research now.
Not Dave Kerr.
I'm sorry, Dave. Dave, if
Dave
you're
Kerr.
listening.
It might be Dave Kerr.
Dave Kerr, yeah.
It's Dave Kerr. Of course it is.
Yes. Shins. Oh my God. They are
there's a video on our YouTube. There's a video of him going to front, and you can see his legs from the distance.
Oh mate, they are mashed up.
Very good rider, actually. Yeah, Dave Kerr. He's
very good.
Still
he's legit. He's always been like, his level's always been. I've always loved it. Like I like watching, when you watch a trials rider, I can instantly see the quality. I've always loved that about being an expert on trials, but no one else in.
You just see them do a back hop, right? And you're
like, that guy's that's quality. That guy's got a lot there. And then you'll see someone else that everyone else thinks, he's doing kind of the same thing. He's good, and you're like, nah.
Yeah, you
sometimes
can tell.
it doesn't work though. Sometimes it's the other way around, where someone's got a really bad back hop style, but they're pretty good. Like the one that comes to my mind, he's got a bit better now. I'm really sorry to say this, but Antonio. And there'll be a few people that will point this out.
Because he can go so big. Well, he's been off a bike for 6 months. There's a friend of ours, comes off a bike for 6 months or longer and has to kind of get back onto it.
He'll ride an elite and things like that.
And he will do an elite section. And
controlled. He'll have a lot of control, but it just initially doesn't look like he would have control.
But yes, you can rush into trials. You've got riders who are really good at the technical, who will absolutely nail a competition. You ride along a beam, no problem. And then there's us, I'll side up 48 inches, but I won't ride along a beam. So it's just, it can be quite, the disciplines are quite varied to some extent,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true of, there's people in BMX who can do double tail whips, but they can't do a manual, it's the same kind of thing, isn't it? I think one of the things you just clocked actually, I thought it's quite funny, is one of the things Trials has always been obsessed with is the weights and measures of everything. Like, I can do 48-inch side up. It's like, exactly how high you can. You're like, I know how high I can side up.
That's so funny. You relate to it more. And why is it in Trials we went with inches? Like, that's American, right?
Yeah.
Well, bunny hop, even in mountain biking, was always always inches, I guess.
Right, that might make some sense.
So I think, but I don't know if that's translated across to...
Well, the Europeans, I do a lot of centimetres, because you see like a European video and you're like, oh, come on, man, I can't bother to work that out. I know it's big. Give me the inches, man. It makes more
sense, because in centimetres you're saying, 100 and something. In inches, you're like, it's 40, 50 inches.
You got the barriers in you, 40, pretty good, 50, really good. Like,
I always used to... I mean, a bunny hop was the thing I had to do all the time, and I had quite a lot of in me to do bunny hops at the heights it was at the time, but the technique changed so much, so you could go so much higher, and the bikes got so much better that I stopped chasing it. Really, I couldn't. You had to do bunny hop and nothing else.
I think even now, bunny hops are quite a rare thing to see with some of the trials because of the geometry of the bike itself. You kind of have to start pedaling to get the front up sometimes.
I mean, well, when I say bunny up, I mean like I was doing side hops, jumping over
of course,
whatever is, But I kind of I topped out, and then I got to that bit where I just couldn't get any more, and
plateaued.
I got to 50 was as like over a bar. That was as high as I got, and I never ever went higher. And I think mentally I got to, I think that's 131 or something like that. But I remember that was like the height. You had to be hitting 50 inches to be like good.
Yeah.
And I was doing shows all the time and always doing bunny hop. And for a long period earlier in my career, I'd been like doing it higher than everyone. So, but I'd got to the point where people are going higher.
That's what I mean. Was there a bit of a pressure when you're like, oh my God,
Well, I had to be good at it.
Yeah.
I had to be good at it because I was doing shows and I didn't want to suddenly be crap at it. So I think I got to 50 inches, or I was thinking of it in centimeters at the time, weirdly, because that's all the good people were European riders. And I knew I was legit at that level. And then I don't think it really got much higher at the time, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And I think like mentally I'd gone, the 50 had been like a bit of a barrier, and I did it. And then the energy to keep trying to be good at it. And the moment you stop sort of thinking about it and train it and religiously doing it a lot, it's like anything in athletics, unless you're really concentrated, then the level goes so quick.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, shows I was doing like 1m10 as the highest I do. But I mean, and I was like, oh, I'm just not.
Especially for a show, that's more on a personal level that you're trying to match that height. Whereas in a show, you change.
I was doing 50 in the. I did a few shows where I was doing 50 inches in the show, and knowing I'd get it, because you want to end the show on doing it.
Of course.
Build it up, you knock it up a couple of times to, oh, you can't do it, and then you do it, and everyone goes mental. So I was doing it at that height for a really short period. And I was sort of really pleased with that. And then it was sort of like, suddenly it was like, oh, I'll do 120 a day. But knowing that was still high. And then, get a year down the line and suddenly you're like, your high that you're going to knock off, but you're going to clear was 110. And then I was on an inspired hex, which is a bit heavier. And it just starts getting lower and lower.
Yeah, of course, everything.
I'm not that good at bunny hop anymore. Yeah. So I think I probably ended my trials career as a pretty crap bunny hop artist. By the end of it, it's pretty rubbish. But jumping over a stick, isn't it? So it doesn't matter.
So we're going to talk about some of the highlights, and we're going to do that in terms of our quick fire round. We ask 3 questions to most of the people that come on this podcast, mainly because sometimes we forget, but thankfully we have them at this time. Quick fire round, Martyn, and that is 3 questions specifically to you in trials. So we're going to start off.
We've covered the shindig already.
Covered the shindig. I think we might have covered a little bit of spot, but where is your favourite spot, or where was your favourite spot to go and ride anywhere in the world? On the trials bike, where was it? When you used to sort of the main one, your training area, or?
I think I'd have to say Porthcawl because it became so. Yeah. It just became a bit of there was a little point where it was a bit of a mecca where people would go just to go and ride there because it's so bloody good, and it's just so much.
John still goes there regularly, doesn't he? So yeah,
I see John out riding all the time. That kid rides all the time, man. Yeah. He really loves it. I used to ride down there so much with Gavin Bedford, and that's probably when we used to just have a really great time. Me and Horsey rode there for years and years while he lived there. So, Porthcawl. It's pretty good.
Good shout. Yeah.
So anyone wants a good day out trials riding, head down to Porthcawl because it will.
We've got to take it off our spot list.
Yeah.
Our little
John will
list.
be our host for that session. I think I do want to go there. I haven't been there yet. So
you boys sort of more street, or
we can
ride everything.
Rocks.
Yeah. We're not.
Porthcawl. We used to have street riders come down to Porthcawl and they'd hate it because there's no clean edges. You've got to be so accurate.
Yeah, I like it for a sense of training, not necessarily. It's not the sort of thing I'd generally go out and film or doing, but
there's
really
some good
get
bits
a sweat
that
on.
are filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, over at Southern Down, there's a really nice bit of Southern Down that's really got much more like smooth rocks that are pretty to look at. Whereas Porthcawl isn't pretty, it's gnarly. It's just, it's really hard. There's like literally world championship level sections there. I used to have a section, Horsey used to hate it. There was a section I used to ride there. It'd take like half an hour to get through it.
Oh, it's just like a section you always go back to and train at. This is what we need to, we should do.
Yeah, like
it was wicked. It was a wicked spot.
Yeah, and so you're at Porthcawl now. Who would you want to be riding with on your trials? It can be anybody.
Who G's you up and just means ride?
I guess I'd have to say, just because we're really great mates, but we're also arch rivals and hate each other at the same time. Chris Ackrig.
Yes, I was feeling that. I was like, is it going to be Chris? I can envision you guys.
I've ridden with Horsey so much that we've got nothing left to say in terms of bikes. There's no talk between us left. We're like, we have a great time, but we don't need bicycles. Me and Horsey don't need the bicycles. Me and Chris have got a love-hate relationship, a real one.
It's healthy. That's healthy.
We've been down the we've been close to, like, as close as you can be in terms of competition of like, I hate you.
Yeah.
I hate you. But I love him. He's one of my best friends at the same time.
Yeah.
And we've been through some moments where I've upset him and he's upset me, that we've got great stories. So when we go out now, we're like, it's playful.
Yeah, it's healthy banter by the sounds of it, mate.
We've forgotten all the seriousness of the competition of when we were young, and now it's healthy. It's not healthy. It's like Chris will give me shit now, and I'm like, dude, I'm disabled in a wheelchair, and you're still giving me a hard time.
He's the only one that might be able to. He's brave enough to.
Definitely won this battle. Yeah. And he still gives me a hard time. But
well, another question that we can always ask all of our guests is, who would you want to see on the Shindig podcast, the Trials podcast?
I'd probably, I think you'd have an amazing time talking to Horsey, because he's an incredible.
Perfect. His name's been dropped now a few times, so I think, hopefully
he's super fun. He's super fun, and he's got some great stories as well. And he's still heavily into motorcycle trials. He sort of went back into motorbike trials and has never ever stopped. And his son's a really, really fantastic trials rider, Harry. So I
might have to go digging for that one. Get a motorbike trials rider on.
He's the head man of sponsorship for Monster Energy too. So he's like really into all other sports, and he's like
sounds like a guy.
He's probably got some pretty interesting contacts, I would have thought. Yeah.
Good. Well, Martyn, if you're listening, we're coming for you, mate. And you know what it's do what you do best and chat trials with us.
I'll just give you his number.
That would probably be easier.
That's pretty easy. Yeah.
Ring him.
We'll do that. I'll just phone him up, send him a little email. Yeah.
WhatsApp him. And if you say to him, Martyn, I'd like to talk to you about you for a bit, he'd be like, oh my God, let me tell you about that.
Yes.
But this is what our show is. This is what we want to get people access to, that under the skin of all the riders.
And I wouldn't have Chris Ackrig on. Don't have Chris Ackrig.
Is he a trials rider or a mountain biker?
He's just like boring. That's all he is.
Yeah, I love it. This might have got them. Maybe Chris will be listening to this now that you've been name dropping him and slagging him off a little bit.
If he is, you're a twat.
Yes, love it. Absolutely love it.
The final part of the quickfire, we didn't quite finish it.
Oh, go on.
So you're in Porthcawl, you're having a rivalry with Chris Ackrig. What is your move? You're going to say, watch this, Chris, I'm going to do this. And the Martyn move that you love doing.
I don't know if I really had any moves. Fall off? I'd probably just fall off. Watch this. Oh, I'm off again. Oh, nightmare. I don't know, really.
What did you enjoy the most? What trick kind of gave you that buzz when you landed it?
I used to like it when I could ride through something, without stopping. Just like if I could ride for a line and make it look like you almost be a hoppy line, but you could keep the bike moving and not stopping. I used to like that. I used to get frustrated when it was too much, or if it was stopping, I'd want to stop and then create enough balance or stillness to sort of have the building of the engine in my head, like, and drop the clutch and off I went. And then
it's such an interesting concept. Looking at
I like that though.
I really do.
Getting different riders' perspective.
I don't know how anyone else does it.
I definitely didn't.
I've never.
I just think, here to here, but obviously that's where the sport originated from. So for us, we just picked up a light bike, and I was like, do
you look at a section and go,
yeah,
yeah?
It's usually
it's this.
Whereas I'll look at it and just go like, yeah.
Like one I see some of the world champions do is that's like code for Frenchie. Like I'm gonna bang my front wheel there. It's just
Yeah. I like that when someone's looking at a section and they're trying to pretend they can do techniques they can't do. I'm not
guilty.
Yeah.
No, actually,
I've got to go here
what
to
I'll
here.
I'll take a dab. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were umming and ahhing. You were going to tap it, but you decided to take a dab. But, it's like, you couldn't tap that.
Just looking at it and go, maybe I could, maybe even hook this and do that. But, Martyn.
Hooks. I remember hooks. I haven't done it. Hooks, that's the technique I try and show Chris and would fail because I couldn't do hooks at all. Never, ever could do hooks. And then I went to, what's that place in Bristol? Where the bank, is it the bank?
Castle Park or Bears Pit or the...
No, it's like a big round wall. It's where everyone rides in Bristol. It's like...
Yeah, it used to be the Bear Pit. It's not there anymore, I don't think. That massive one around there. That's what I'm thinking of.
It was named after a bank.
Lloyd's. Oh, Lloyd's.
Lloyd's.
Yes. That's
there's that big wall there, isn't there? Yeah. I went there with Rowan Johns.
Yes.
And he could hook everything. And I said to him, man, I would so love to be able to do that hook thing that you kids all do. I couldn't do it. This was like later on, and he was like one of the young street kids. He was like, I can teach you to do hooks easy. And he spent all day teaching me how to hook that wall at Lloyd's. And I did it. And I was like, oh my God. I was like 38 years old and I learned to hook. I'm like, yes.
Because that's like now.
You've got 10 more years, Matt.
Yeah, I know. But 10 more years so I can learn to hook. Now, hooks become part of a lot of trials. Jumping into
static hooks.
Rolling statics. So... but I feel so much better now that I can just about hook.
No, I can't.
Not regularly, not consistently.
Do you know what the bit was? The bit that made me, the bit I'd never realised, and he just clicked in my head, and he was like, "Are you touching your front brake?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Don't touch the front brake."
See, I've heard of this.
Yeah, I've heard.
Because I said to Steve about this, and he was like, "Nah, you don't do that." Because you get a spring out of the wheel, right? Is that why you don't do it?
I think the thing is that it's like the thing of like a fly hitting a car. Does the car stop or does the fly has to stop when it hits a car to go in the other direction?
Yes.
It's physics, isn't it? The fly does stop, but it doesn't stop. But it does, because it has to stop.
That's
it's like,
really
no, but it doesn't stop.
Analogy.
It's like, but it must stop to change direction. And a hook without the front brake on, the same thing is that if you land and the front brake's on, the wheel does stop. And what you want with a hook is you just want to create momentum, like you just click. And if you don't touch the front brake, you can't do it. The back wheel hits, the front wheel springs, and
you're already using your momentum of body to get up there. We've been running trials wrong all these years.
Then again, I suppose him and people like Flip, was he running Brakeless at this time? Because he was one of the Brakeless pioneers, wasn't he?
I think that's how he'd learned. That's how he'd realised it was so much easier to do it without a front brake. I mean, there would be certain obstacles, wouldn't there, where you would have to have a front brake on, and if you were doing a hook static or a gap hook, obviously you've got to use the front wheel, but. Front brake, but to do a classic street hook and make it look nice, which I wanted to do that thing where the same thing as with the bunny hop, I wanted someone to see me a wall like that and I wanted to ride my bicycle up it. So people go, what?
The motorbike.
He went like that.
Well, motorbike trials don't do that, do they?
We're talking about Steve-O's move, isn't it? Again, Steve Rogers is a rider who loves doing this. He does them pretty big as well, but like that where pretty much there's no brakes involved, but it's just bike just goes against the wall like a motorbike trials does, and it just rolls through it.
I invented moto. Don't give it to some guy. I invented that move.
Yeah.
Well, we did.
He's Captain Crash. He's known as Captain Crash, so you're all right.
Yeah, that's the one thing I could do really well. That's the move I do, moto. Like I could ride my back wheel into the very bottom of a vertical step, and I would just basically roll
through
up
it
like that.
Yeah.
But there is a certain height you get to, and then it won't work anymore. It's basically as tall as the wheelbase.
Oh, of course.
Once you go above the wheelbase,
the wheelbase doesn't climb. It can't.
the front has got to drag you up.
Yeah.
So it's a limited move, but I could do it as big as you could do it on whatever bike.
Yeah.
And certain bikes would do it a bit bigger because basically their wheelbase was bigger. But moto was. I love that move. But again, it's just me going.
I'm going to start picturing that when I'm riding now, actually, like a motorbike on my bike. Like, straight up.
Do you guys do moto move?
I've
never been
not very well,
no.
but I like to do the whole roll up to brake. I love rolling up to brakeless. So as if you were going to go to front wheel, but not using the front brake and just then roll. That's the closest thing I would get to that. And that's pretty satisfying, I must say.
Yeah, that feels great. When you keep momentum on top.
Yeah,
like the step didn't. That's lovely.
Yeah,
but moto technique, like banging that back wheel in. Oh, that's so rewarding. It feels incredible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mate, I think we've covered a really nice bit of ground, Martyn. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Catching up with you, mate, and you giving us your Friday afternoon to hang out and chat. I know on behalf of the trials community, thanks so much, mate, for everything. It's just like we can't really start at that, but you've done a lot for many of us. Me seeing you when I was first 13 years old, it gave me that direction into what I love and do now as a hobby / kind of career. So from my personal level, thank you so much, Martyn.
Myself open up an MB UK magazine and just skipping past all this boring mountain bike stuff.
Oh, there's Martyn. Yes.
There's Martyn Ashton's book section. There we go. That's all I ever bought it for. My nan bought it for me for.
Yeah, so I never even remember reading the whole magazine. It was always straight to the trial section, really.
Oh man, it's so cool. I mean, I had exactly the sort of same experience of like wanting to be like and do the thing of someone like I was looking at Hans Ray and Otp, and I remember the feeling of like, oh, I want to be able to do that. You know, I want to be able to do that thing they're doing. So I think trials, everyone has to go through that. Yeah. They set their level of what they want to aim at, and
you set the bar.
I get it.
Martyn, you set the bar and set
one. I'm going to give you one final message, Martyn. You know, what do you want to give to trials riders? What should every trials rider do? What's your one message?
Oh, enjoy the camaraderie of it. You know, just enjoy the riding with others, and I think that's something you get from riding bikes, no matter what. I think if you go to a mountain bike trail centre, you get the same vibe of hanging out with other riders. Yeah. There's nothing like it, like talking about just fun on bikes, and just enjoy that part of it, man.
Yeah, just, community level of it is definitely
that bit never. You will get worse. You're going to get good for a long time, but then you'll start to get worse. What won't change is you'll still laugh. You'll still have a good time. You'll realise it won't matter that much how good you get. It's all whatever, you know. And some little punk is going to come along and make you look like an idiot. So get ready.
Super wise words from there, from Mr. Martyn Ashton. Mate, thank you so much
Thank you again.
We have been the Shindig podcast. This has been the lovely Martyn Ashton. I've been Matt Pengelly.
I've been Tom Hutley. Tune in to us every single Friday. New episodes come out every Friday, and media roughly every week as well.
Yeah,
you know, media on the YouTube.
Maybe we'll see Martyn at an event. There is a trials event happening this year called Radfest, which will be in Essex. Yeah. Maybe I won't put any pressure on you. Mid-July it'll be the biggest trials event in the UK.
Horsy's been to it before. He's told me about it. So you never know. Never know.
Well, maybe we'll see Martyn there, or some of his friends. So again, thank you very much.
No worries, guys. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Take care and have a good day, mate. Thanks again.
Cheers, mate. See you later, guys.
See you later. Bye. you